Have you ever wondered if there are places on Earth that you could never visit? Not because they're too expensive or too remote, but because you're simply not allowed. Hidden across the world are locations so fragile, dangerous, or scientifically valuable that ordinary visitors are permanently kept away. Some protect irreplaceable ecosystems. Others preserve wonders that have survived for millions of years. And a few are closed because a single careless step could destroy something that can never be replaced. Today, we're counting down 7 of the world's most fascinating forbidden places. Each one tells an incredible story, and each has a very different reason why almost no one is ever allowed inside. Before we begin, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We explore extraordinary places and hidden stories from around the world every week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Number 7. Movile Cave, Romania. Imagine discovering a world that has been completely isolated from the rest of Earth for more than 5 million years. That's exactly what happened in 1986, when workers surveying land near the Romanian city of Mangalia accidentally broke through into a cave no human had ever entered. What scientists found inside was astonishing. Movile Cave isn't just another underground cavern. It's one of the most unusual ecosystems ever discovered. The air contains extremely high levels of hydrogen sulfide and methane, while oxygen levels are only about half of what we breathe at the surface. Without specialized equipment, even a short visit could be dangerous. But the real surprise wasn't the toxic atmosphere. It was the life. Cut off from sunlight for millions of years, the cave developed an ecosystem unlike anywhere else on Earth. Instead of relying on plants and sunlight, microscopic organisms survive by converting chemicals into energy. Those microbes support an entire food web of creatures found nowhere else on the planet. Researchers have identified dozens of unique species, including blind spiders, translucent insects, water scorpions, and tiny invertebrates that evolved in complete darkness. Because the ecosystem is so delicate, access is tightly controlled. Only a small number of scientists have ever been allowed inside, each following strict procedures designed to prevent outside bacteria from contaminating the cave. Even a tiny disturbance could permanently alter an environment that has remained virtually unchanged for millions of years. For many researchers, Movile Cave offers something even more exciting. It provides one of the best natural models for how life might exist beneath the icy surfaces of distant moons like Europa or Enceladus. Sometimes, protecting the future of science means keeping one extraordinary place completely off limits. Number 6. Pravčická, Czech Republic. At first glance, it looks like the perfect place for an unforgettable photograph. Towering above the forests of Bohemian Switzerland National Park, Pravčická is the largest natural sandstone arch in Europe. Rising more than 50 feet high and stretching nearly 90 feet across, it's one of the Czech Republic's most iconic natural landmarks. For decades, visitors could walk across the top of the arch, enjoying spectacular views of the surrounding valleys and cliffs. But every visitor left behind something invisible: damage. Unlike solid granite, sandstone slowly wears away under constant pressure. Over the years, millions of footsteps accelerated erosion, and engineers began noticing cracks and increasing signs of structural weakness. If unrestricted tourism continued, there was growing concern that the arch could eventually collapse. In 1982, authorities made a difficult decision. Walking on the arch was permanently banned. Today, visitors can still admire its incredible beauty from specially designed viewing platforms below. But no one is allowed to climb or even touch the formation itself. The restriction wasn't introduced to keep people out. It was introduced to give the arch more time, even without human activity. Wind, rain, freezing temperatures, and natural erosion continue reshaping the sandstone year after year. Scientists know that one day, the arch will eventually collapse, just as many natural rock formations have throughout history. The goal isn't to stop nature. It's simply to slow the damage long enough for future generations to experience one of Europe's most remarkable geological wonders. Sometimes the greatest way to preserve a place is to leave it alone. Number 5. Svalbard Global Seed Vault, Norway. Imagine a place built for a disaster that everyone hopes never happens. Hidden deep inside a frozen mountain on the remote Norwegian island of Spitsbergen The Svalbard Global Seed Vault serves as the world's ultimate backup plan for agriculture. A reinforced tunnel stretches hundreds of feet into permanently frozen rock before ending at a series of heavily protected storage chambers. Behind thick steel doors rest more than 1 million seed samples collected from nearly every country on Earth. These aren't ordinary seeds. They represent thousands of crop varieties, modern crops, traditional heirloom plants, and even rare wild relatives that may hold the genetic traits needed to survive future droughts, diseases, or climate change. If a global catastrophe ever destroyed major food supplies, these tiny seeds could help rebuild agriculture from the ground up. That's why almost no one is allowed inside. The public can visit the entrance, but access beyond it is limited to authorized personnel and carefully scheduled deposits from international seed banks. Even the countries that store seeds there can't simply walk in and retrieve them whenever they want. The vault has already proved its value. When conflict in Syria damaged an important agricultural research center, scientists withdrew backup seed collections from Svalbard to restore the lost varieties. Once replacement collections were safely stored again, the borrowed seeds were returned. Ironically, even this fortress of preservation faces its own challenges. In 2017, unusually warm Arctic temperatures caused melting around the entrance tunnel, allowing water to seep inside. The seeds remained perfectly safe, but engineers quickly upgraded the facility to ensure it could withstand an even warmer future. It's a remarkable reminder that even humanity's greatest insurance policy isn't completely immune to the changing world outside. Number 4. Niihau Island, Hawaii, USA. Hawaii welcomes millions of visitors every year. But there's one island where tourism simply doesn't exist. Located about 17 miles southwest of Kauai, Niihau has remained almost entirely closed to the outside world for more than 160 years. Unlike the other Hawaiian islands, Niihau isn't managed as a tourist destination. It's privately owned. In 1864, the island was purchased from the Kingdom of Hawaii by Elizabeth Sinclair, and today it's still owned by her descendants, the Robinson family. Their decision to preserve the island's traditional way of life has kept it remarkably unchanged. Only residents, family members, invited guests, government officials, and limited U.S. military personnel are permitted to enter. Unless you receive a personal invitation, stepping onto the island simply isn't possible. Around 170 people call Niihau home. Life there moves at a very different pace from modern Hawaii. There are no resorts, no shopping districts, no crowded beaches, and virtually no tourism. Solar power supplies electricity. Transportation is simple, and many long-standing Hawaiian traditions continue to shape everyday life. The isolation has also helped preserve something increasingly rare. The Hawaiian language remains widely spoken as the community's primary language, making Niihau one of the few places where traditional Hawaiian culture continues largely uninterrupted by outside influence. Visitors curious about the island can only view it from a distance during limited helicopter or boat tours. The goal isn't secrecy, it's preservation. In a world where many destinations have been transformed by mass tourism, Niihau stands as a rare example of a community choosing to protect its culture, privacy, and identity above all else. Sometimes, the most extraordinary places aren't hidden by fences or armed guards. They're protected simply because the people who live there want them to remain exactly as they are. Number 3. Lake Vostok, Antarctica. More than 2 miles beneath the frozen surface of Antarctica lies a lake that has been hidden from the outside world for millions of years. It's called Lake Vostok, and it's one of the most extraordinary places on Earth. Scientists believe this enormous body of water has remained completely sealed beneath the Antarctic ice sheet for at least 15 million years. Long before humans existed, before the ice ages reached their peak, this ancient lake was already isolated from the rest of the planet. It wasn't discovered by explorers. It was discovered by radar. During the 1970s, researchers detected an enormous lake buried beneath the ice, directly below Russia's Vostok research station, one of the coldest places on Earth. Winter temperatures there have fallen below -120 degrees Fahrenheit, creating one of the harshest environments imaginable. Reaching the lake presented an enormous challenge. Scientists wanted to study its waters, but drilling directly into it carried a serious risk. A single mistake could contaminate an ecosystem that had evolved in complete isolation for millions of years. After decades of careful planning, researchers finally reached the lake in 2012 using specially designed drilling techniques intended to minimize contamination. Even today, only a handful of water samples have ever been collected, and every new study follows some of the strictest scientific protocols in the world. So why is Lake Vostok so important? Because what lies beneath the ice could completely reshape our understanding of life. If microscopic organisms have managed to survive in this cold, dark, oxygen-poor environment for millions of years, similar life could potentially exist beneath the frozen oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus. In other words, studying this hidden lake may one day help answer one of humanity's greatest questions. Are we alone in the universe? For now, the lake remains almost entirely untouched, not because people aren't curious, but because protecting its pristine environment is considered far more important than satisfying that curiosity. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries come from knowing when not to interfere. Number 2. Grand Shrine of Ise, Japan. Across Japan, thousands of Shinto shrines welcome visitors from around the world, but one sacred site remains almost completely out of reach. The Grand Shrine of Ise, located in Mie Prefecture, is considered the spiritual heart of Shinto, Japan's indigenous religion. Dedicated to Amaterasu, the sun goddess and legendary ancestor of Japan's imperial family, it is one of the country's most revered places of worship. Its greatest mystery isn't hidden underground. It's hidden behind wooden fences. The shrine's innermost sanctuary is closed to the public. Only Shinto priests and members of Japan's imperial family are permitted to enter the most sacred areas. Even high-ranking government officials and distinguished guests must remain outside the inner enclosure. Visitors can explore the peaceful forests, walk along ancient pathways, and admire the beautiful surroundings. But the shrine itself remains largely concealed from view. This tradition reflects a belief that some sacred places are meant to be respected rather than observed. The Grand Shrine of Ise is also remarkable for another reason. Every 20 years, the entire complex is carefully dismantled and rebuilt using centuries-old construction techniques passed down through generations of master craftsmen. No modern shortcuts, no steel supports, not even nails. Each new structure is built beside the old one, using traditional Japanese cypress, preserving both the architecture and the craftsmanship that have defined the shrine for nearly 2,000 years. Rather than preserving the same physical building forever, Japan preserves something even more valuable: the knowledge of how to build it. That cycle of renewal has continued for centuries, making the Grand Shrine of Ise not only one of Japan's most sacred places, but also one of its greatest living traditions. Sometimes history isn't protected by locking it away. Sometimes it's preserved by rebuilding it again and again. Number 1. Pluto's Gate, Turkey. For thousands of years, people believed there was a doorway to the underworld hidden in ancient Turkey. Surprisingly, they weren't entirely wrong. Located within the ruins of Hierapolis, Pluto's Gate was one of the most feared religious sites in the ancient Greco-Roman world. Dedicated to Pluto, the god of the underworld, the small cave gained a terrifying reputation because animals brought near its entrance would suddenly collapse and die. To ancient visitors, the explanation seemed obvious. The cave was cursed. Priests claimed they alone could safely enter the sacred chamber and return alive, convincing many people that divine powers protected them while condemning everyone else. For centuries, historians dismissed those stories as little more than mythology. Modern science revealed something even more fascinating. The cave sits directly above an active geological fault that continuously releases carbon dioxide from deep underground. Because the gas is heavier than air, it settles close to the ground, creating an invisible layer that contains dangerously high concentrations of carbon dioxide. Small animals entering the area quickly suffocate. Humans who remain too long, especially at night or during the early morning when the gas is most concentrated, can also lose consciousness within minutes. the ancient priests may not have possessed supernatural powers after all. Many researchers believe they simply understood when the gas was least dangerous and knew how to avoid breathing near the ground, turning natural science into what appeared to be a miracle. Today, the entrance is securely fenced off, and visitors are prohibited from approaching the cave itself. Not because of ancient legends, but because the invisible danger is still very real. Sometimes history's greatest mysteries aren't created by magic, they're created by nature. The world is filled with extraordinary places that most of us will never experience firsthand. Some are protected because they're too fragile. Others preserve priceless scientific discoveries, ancient traditions, or ecosystems that exist nowhere else on Earth. In every case, the restrictions aren't about keeping people away. They're about ensuring these remarkable places survive for future generations. If you enjoyed exploring these incredible forbidden destinations, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next adventure. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which of these 7 forbidden places fascinated you the most? And if you could safely visit just one, which would you choose? Leave your answer in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.